welcome everybody. This is a flute video about drone flutes and multi-fingered flutes, multi-flutes. Yeah, multi-flutes. Multi-flutes and drone flutes. So this came at a patron's request. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it takes to play a drone flute. I'm assuming we know what a drone flute is, but I'll cover that too. Also, considerations that you might have when purchasing a drone flute, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's get started right now. So I actually don't own a classic drone flute, which would be basically two flute bodies or one fat one, but basically it's two, chambers and two bores, and one of them has no holes, no finger holes, or all the finger holes are closed, and that flute is playing the lowest note, right? The fundamental, the bottom note, the key of the flute, right? So if it's an A flute, it's playing an A. And then it stays on that, and then the other flute would be like a typical flute, normal flute. This flute I have is a little bit different. This is a clay flute, obviously. I hope that's obvious. Made by Nash, and this flute is a triple flute, and it's a little bit different. I'm not going to get into a lot of the specifics, but just suffice to say that it's not a typical drone, but the same principles apply. So what can we do with the drone flute? Well, first of all, we can play the low notes on any of the flutes. We can also play a melody on the higher side of the regular flute side. You're probably not going to just play the drone side by itself because you don't need to. You can just play the low note on the flute. This flute is a little bit trickier because it's a triple flute, so it's a little bit harder to get that the middle one. Although I guess if I could pretend I'm kissing somebody in a really awkward way, I could probably get the middle one. But for right now, we're going to focus on what you can do. So you've got the drone, right? You've got the drone going. And one of the things I like to do with drone flutes is explore all the different intervals that are on the flute. So it's a nice opportunity to learn about the different intervals and really tune into the quality. I'm not sure many of us musicians in general really sit with these intervals like thirds, fourths, fifths, and tune into the quality of those intervals. And so when you have a drone flute, it's a nice opportunity to just listen, play a note, and just get a feel for those two notes. And if you know the interval, which you could figure it out or have somebody help you figure out the intervals, usually on a regular flute you would have the bottom note would be unison, right? So same note. And then the next hole up would be a minor third. And then a perfect fourth, perfect fifth, etc., sixth, and then a dominant seventh, and then the unison octave. So even if you're just playing 5-hole style pentatonic scale, you've got several notes there. Root, and then you've got third, fourth, fifth, seventh, dominant seventh, minor seventh, and then the octave. So you could do that. Here's what that would sound like. So I'm going to play. So I'm going to start with the unison. In this flute, that's a major third. And that's a major seventh. So this flute's a little different than your typical Native American style tuned flute, but still, what about that note? So, explore that a little bit. Now, let's jump over to the physicality of playing a drone flute for a second. You're blowing in two flutes. So what's going to happen? You're going to use more air, which means you're going to run out of air faster than you usually do. So here's the thing. If you're thinking about getting a drone and you feel like you're maybe not somebody that is able to play long phrases, or you feel like you run out of air pretty quick, I would recommend a smaller drone flute, like not an A even, not a mid A, but maybe higher, like a C, D, E, up in that range, because you'll be able to play longer phrases. The smaller flutes don't use anywhere near the amount of air as the larger flutes. Certainly, I would not recommend getting into any kind of bass range. This flute is in the F sharp range, F sharp G, and when I'm blowing all three of these, I mean, it uses as much air as a larger bass flute, like a C or even an A. And those go through air like my truck goes through gas. It uses up a lot of air. So either you need to just understand that getting into it, adjust your playing accordingly, play shorter phrases, maybe play more rhythmic, and not expect to play long, drawn-out phrases. That being said, I mean, you could certainly play a drone flute and just manage your air. You can, cheat a little bit. You don't have to blow a lot of air into both chambers all the time. You can maybe figure out how to put just enough air into the drone to keep it going, but you don't need any more than that, right? So you just need to have the note there, and you don't need to, super saturate it with airflow. I'm going to play this a little bit more so you can just hear it, and I might just note how often I'm breathing in the different ways I'm playing it, and then I might change the way I'm playing it so that my need to take a breath is not so apparent. I can maybe hide it behind the way I'm playing the flute. I'm going to add a little bit of reverb. Here we go. Okay, drone flutes are fun. So let's review a few approaches, a few things you can do. One, you can play either side, right? But probably just the melody side. By itself, you could do an ABA solo where you do the melody and then introduce the drone, do a B section, and then go back to the melody side. So you have automatic form there and some variations that you can do with your drone flute. Keep in mind that it does burn through air faster. So just keep that in mind. If you want to get into a drone flute, maybe at least, an A would be as low as I would start and then see how it is. But maybe just shoot for like a D or an E. And those are both really useful keys. And maybe start there with the drone. Remember to, savor the intervals and pay attention when you're playing it. Don't just play up and down, but get to know your flute in a way that when you're playing the drone, you tune into the quality of the intervals. And that's going to help you overall when you play with other musicians and you play with other music or backing tracks. I think that's really useful. So that's something that you can use your drone flute for practicing, not just playing it as an effect, but really, paying attention to the intervals so that you develop your ear and you develop as a musician, and you're better able to use your flute effectively the way you want to use it to create the effects, you know, that you want to play. Classic drone, you know, there's V drones like this. There's ones that are stacked on top of each other. There's ones that are like double barrel, you know, one piece of wood basically with two bores in it. And then there's triple flutes like this one. I would not recommend a triple flute for people with smaller hands, or if you're running out of air more quickly for the reasons I mentioned, because they do go through air very quickly. So even though it's beautiful, I get it, it's really tempting. I mean, this thing sounds angelic, but it does go through air quickly. So, and it's a little, the clay flute, even though this is beautiful, it's a little bit heavy. So I would not recommend this if you are not okay with maintaining, you know, holding up a heavier flute. I would go with wood, maybe even a lighter wood, you know, a soft wood, medium soft wood, not a hard wood. Those are just things to consider. So if you're looking to purchase a drone, you can make a good choice for you right up front, and you're not trying to sell it 6 months later or a year later. Although if you are, give me a call. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, well, don't leave them below. Message me if you're on Patreon. And happy fluting. See you soon.